Politics and religion, church and state, what does it mean to bring these into relationship? Are they immiscible, soluble? How did conservatives get here, to the point where they wonder if they need to rethink the relationship between church and state? First, there has been a rapid takeover of every American institution except the Supreme Court by that constellation of phenomena known as CRT, wokeness, DEI, cancel culture, and virtue signaling. Together, I think we should call these identity politics. Second, there has been a complete and disastrous failure of conservatives to comprehend and push back against these phenomena, as evinced by the tiresome invocation of the terms cultural Marxism and progressivism, to no avail whatsoever. Let me be so bold as to say, conservatives, man up. The Cold War is over. Stop using terms that were invoked 50 years ago to name a new enemy. The long, slow march of Marxism never happened. Instead, we have witnessed a rapid march of identity politics through all of our institutions. Bernie Sanders is a Marxist. His thinking has been thrown into the dustbin of history by the identitarian politicians who now rule the left. Progressivism, the belief that expert competence of elites trained at our best universities can redeem the American regime from the founders' illusion about citizen competence, has died. We do not teach expert competence in our best universities anymore. We teach identity politics. We teach our students to think only in terms of innocent victimhood and transgressive stain. Do not be deceived. Call out the left. It is not progressive. It is identitarian. It does not want expert rule. It wants innocent victims to rule. Conservatives dare to raise these questions about church and state because identity politics has overrun our institutions so much now that we wonder if the constitutional regime set up by our founders indeed must be reconsidered. Hence the emergence of serious thinking about Christian nationalism, a post-liberal order, and pre-modern integralism. We dare think down these paths because we are on the verge of a regime change based on innocent victim rather than on citizen competence, as the older one once was. We should be under no illusion whatsoever that is the project of the left today. Here I propose to wrestle with the problem not by developing any institutional claims about church and state or any category claims about politics and religion, but rather by clearing the decks for a moment and talking about three kinds of debt. From there, I can make some observations about the sorry state of our regime and why conservatives have been so impotent during the onslaught. In the beginning was debt. Not by accident, I think, does Plato's Republic begin with the formula that justice involves paying our debts. It is the deepest understanding we have. Then there's Genesis 3, which Christians since Paul and Athanasius have understood to mean that man cannot pay the price to liberate himself from the slavery of sin, hence the divine ransom Christ paid to adopt us and to bring him into the household of God. Conservatives have little to say about this today. Since the 1950s, conservatives have focused on two kinds of debt, about which more in a minute. And since the 1970s, they have abided by Rawls' injunction that public reason rules out religious confession as an admissible mode of argumentation in the public sphere. That too must end. Conservatives, as I have said, have focused on economic debt, which is the balance sheet of costs and benefits, and tradition, the debt we owe to our fathers. Indeed, it could be said that these two pillars of conservatism, aligned in some measure but never exactly pointing in the right direction, have been the foundation for the last 100 years. Burke is not Smith, Tocqueville is not Hayek. They need not crash into each other too often on multi-lane highways, however. To get at the third kind of debt, I want to invoke a term Tocqueville invoked in the old regime. The French Revolution, he wrote in 1851, was an incomplete religion. In 1835, in Democracy in America, he had written the following: 18th century thinkers believed that religion would die down as freedom and enlightenment spread. It is tiresome that the facts do not fit the theory. The Age of Enlightenment would not blot out Christianity. 16 years later, he added a new twist. Christianity might weaken, and into its place might step one incomplete religion after another. After Christendom does not come secularism, but rather the age of incomplete religions. What is an incomplete religion? I propose this scheme. Whereas in Christianity, man is universally stained, and through a vertical eruption into history is saved from his stain and transgression. In an incomplete religion, the vertical relationship between man and God is reconceived as a horizontal relationship between pure, mortal, innocent victims and impure, mortal transgressors. God does not save the world. Man does, by expunging the impure ones so that the body social may be cleansed. Second, an idea that follows from the first. The innocent victim is, to use a not irrelevant theological term, justified so that his revolutionary acts, say, guillotining landed aristocrats and churchmen during the terror, slaughtering whole classes of citizens during the blood sacrifice that was communism, butchering Israelis on October 7th, or rioting, burning neighborhoods, and destroying livelihoods during the mostly peaceful protests in the aftermath of George Floyd, are covered over, to again use Christian language, for these incomplete religions that have befallen us since 1789. Whether we are talking about the French Revolution, communism, the ghastly simplifications of post-colonial studies, or the raging fire of identity politics in America and Western Europe today, the so-called innocent victim is never guilty of anything, no matter how many laws he or she breaks. And to the stained transgressors, we may say that no matter what they do, they are forever under indictment and need to vindicate themselves, hence the never-ending acts of performative justice we witness today by guilty white liberals who recently painted Black Lives Matter down the streets across America, did nothing to actually heal wounds that are real and make lives among the least of us any better, but quivered in the hope that social death would pass them over. The incomplete religions that have overshadowed the so-called secular Enlightenment West for the last 2.5 centuries operate like Christianity on the third economy, in which the moneyed economy conservatives know so well means nothing. Judas the apostle received his silver coins for his betrayal, yet took his life because his betrayal was beyond price. The money of the landed aristocrats and priests could not buy pardon during the terror. The richest members of the bourgeoisie could not cleanse their ledger with gold and were extinguished. Concert goers pleaded their lives on October 7th, no matter. They carried no guns, but they were guilty of being colonizers, as our ever so wise young people have declared at elite colleges across the country in America this past year. And of the reparations in identity politics, even if Americans reached consensus about the size of the check, the debt would continue to be called in. Like Christianity, all the incomplete religions operate on what might be called a spiritual economy and assert that an unpayable debt of the transgressor must be reckoned with. In Christianity, the transgressor is humankind, every member, and his unpayable debt is canceled by a divine innocent victim, Christ. In all the incomplete religions, the transgressors too have an unpayable debt, which they can discharge only by being purged, hence the ongoing cancellation, traceable to the French Revolution, of all those who believe not in cosmopolitan man and globalism, but in their particular nation. Hence the hatred of our bourgeoisie institutions of church, family and church by the Frankfurt School in the mid-20th century and the project of destroying them. Hence the current hatred of Israel, because it is simply and unequivocally a colonizer, from the river to the sea, indeed. Hence the hatred of whiteness in the language of toxin applied especially to our young men. The categories of these incomplete religions, universalist versus particularist, oppressor versus oppressed, colonized versus colonizer, innocent victim versus straight white man, establish a sharp line of demarcation between purity and stain, as does Christianity. But in the case of these incomplete religions, there is no forgiveness. The debt accumulates and can only be discharged via violence against the stained transgressor. The innocent victim does not, as in Christianity, take away the sins of the world. No, only by purging the impure can the world be made pure again. The purportedly pure innocent victim assures himself that his very survival depends on purging the toxicity he beholds. Out there, never in here. Regarding the upcoming election, identitarians declare that we must save our democracy from the deplorables. So goes this dangerous line of thinking. Never a thought about the poison that lies within them. Let me conclude. I'll make a number of succinct points. Identity politics is an incomplete religion, a spiritual economy according to which the pure innocent victims must ascend and the impure ones must be purged. Next, identity politics bears a resemblance to the incomplete religion of Marxism that came before it, but is different. Next, Progressivism is dead. The left is identitarian. It fixes on innocent victimhood, not expert competence. We must ring this bell, Paul Revere style, and announce the name of the enemy that wishes to replace the founder's regime of competence. Next, conservatism has failed to understand and address identity politics because it understands economic debt and the debt we owe to our fathers, but not the spiritual economy of the incomplete religion of identity politics, which is akin to a great awakening unto transgression and stain, though without God and without forgiveness. Next, as to the question of what lies ahead, there are three possible paths. The civilization formerly known as Christendom endures wave after wave of incomplete religion in the so-called secular age until it collapses. Alternatively, the West follows Nietzsche, which proclaims that to reestablish its vitality, the West must renounce Christian guilt and altogether in order to have a tomorrow, to use Nietzsche's term, by forgetting slavery in America, colonialism, 2 world wars, and the Holocaust. Here's the real alt-right stripped of its bizarre accretions. Third possibility, the civilization formerly known as Christendom is reborn anew unto Christianity. I have no competence or ill-formed preference about how to rename this rebirth, nor any coherent institutional insights about church and state or about categorical relations between politics and religion. I am certain, however, that the necessary condition for this renewal is chronicled in the staggering account of which the whole Bible offers testimony, of 2 apex creatures, Adam and Eve, whose insistence that they are innocent victims is supplanted by the subsequent agonizing understanding that their own sin runs so deep that only a divine ransom by the only innocent victim that creation will ever see will save them. Next point, 2 more. The spiritual economy is the economy of stain and redemption. The left knows this, but only offers ghastly, incomplete religions through which to work out man's salvation. Frightened conservatives are proud of the 2 lesser economies of money and of tradition, and they do talk of religious values and Christian principles incessantly. But because they are frightened to defend the spiritual economy that Christianity offers, and through which they have historically taken on all heresies and apostasies, they will likely be defeated. It's your choice. Lastly, those of you who dream of Christian nationalism for America are too late. We have an established church, and our elite educational institutions provide its clergy as they did long ago in America. The spiritual economy of identity politics suffuses all of our institutions. What was once an ecclesiastical matter, how to lift man's burden of his unpayable debt and be redeemed, has now become a political matter. Politics and religion have become one. Thank you.